Okay, hello. Um, so, uh, this video is going to be about um, the current wave spell, the Red Serpent wave spell. Today is Kin 108, by the way. Um, I was supposed to do it a couple days before it started on Kin 105, but I got a little bit busy, so I figured it's okay to do it, you know, on the next available day, which would have been today. So it's okay that if we're on the fourth day in, um, because we'll perpetually go through this wave spell cycle forever and ever, as long as there's time. Um, but yeah, I guess we'll go ahead and do a quick breath real quick, and then I'll talk about the wave spell. So, um, I'll just do one cycle of the G breath. Sorry, I've been really busy and I'm just not that enthusiastic at the moment. So, yeah. We'll just do a little command, and that is, and remember, you can say the command out loud or in your mind, just say it as a standalone statement. And whenever you breathe, remember to take full deep breaths, breathing as high quality as you can. Focus more on the act of breathing and improving the quality of your breath. Focus on that. So, command is power up. Now begin by exhaling the air out of your mouth. Exhale all the way, breathing into your mouth. Breathing out through your mouth. Deep, full breaths, breathing into your mouth. Breathing out through your nose. Breathing in through your nose. And breathing out through your nose. Breathing in through your nose. Breathing out through your mouth. Breathe in through your mouth. And exhale out your mouth. Okay, so the Red Serpent wave spell. Okay, so it follows the Yellow Human wave spell. It begins the Blue Castle, right? So just a refresher, the castles are the 52-day cycles made up of 4 wave spells. Within the 260 Tzolk'in spin, there are 5 castles, because 5 times 52 is 260. Each castle is made up of a red wave spell, a white wave spell, a blue wave spell, and a yellow wave spell. So this Red Serpent wave spell begins the blue castle, aka the 3rd castle, because the castles are red, white, blue, yellow, and then a final 5th one, which is the green. So first off, the blue castle begins on Kin 105, and it concludes on Kin 156. That's its last day, right? And the wave spell begins on Kin 105, and it concludes on Kin 117. So, for instance, today is Kin 108, and I'll get to that one when we get there. So it begins with 105, right? 105. This this number with the law of time, as well as sacred occulted mathematics in general, um, and that includes the Holy Bible, especially the Holy Bible. This number comes up again and again. Of course, not literally, but mathematically encoded, right? This here is the triangulation of 14, right? Which is the number of finger bones for one complete human hand, if you will. So this number is 14 triangulated, meaning that, yeah. 105 is 14 triangulated, which means if you add every whole number from 1 up to the number that you're triangulating, which is 14. So 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4. 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4 plus 5 plus 6 plus 7 plus 8 plus 9 plus 10 plus 11 plus 12 plus 13 plus 14. Boom, 105. This is actually embedded within the chessboard as well. And if you take the gematria for the word king, you get 105. If I'm not mistaken, let's see. So again, what it's referencing is us, right? But more so, I'd say the masculine, because that's the serpent energy is very interesting. So just as a quick thing though about this, it's analog, since it's one serpent or red magnetic serpent, its analog is, all serpents as analogs are white wizards, by the way, but because it's particular wizard, it's matching tone, one wizard or magnetic wizard is kin 14. Kin 14 and kin 105 are exact analogs, and again, 105 is the triangulation of 14. Sorry, this video may end up being a little bit longer than 30 minutes. I'm going to try and get it to 30 minutes, but it may end up going a little bit longer just because it's taking me a second. I'm doing all of this off the cuff, so off the top of my dome. So yeah, just to talk about the red serpent energy. So the red serpent is the 5th solar seal, right? Because it is the serpent, right? When you say pent, it means 5. Again, going back to our hand. Pent also means to close up and to contain, right? To store, to hold in that sense, right? In a vessel or a container. So when you say somebody's pent up, it's because they have a lot of energy that's pent up, right? The serpent, this goes back to the Kundalini of the Hindu yoga tradition, where the life force begins as a coiled up snake at the base of the spine in the red chakra, and it's known as the red serpent, etc. Because it is an earthly creature, right? It lives on the earth, right? And of the earth. And the red of the alchemical sequence, the rubedo, as well as, within the Mayan cosmology, red represents earth. The serpents, right, the entwining serpents represent the human DNA, right? It's like the human genome, the double helix, etc., right? It represents consciousness in its most base primal form. Hence, the powers of the serpent are survival, instinct, and life force, right? Again, going back, and you see the serpent at the beginning of Genesis, which represents the human ego, the drive within the human to explore and to do things that is it's like an unconscious drive in the human to to rebel in that sense, and to get into things that it shouldn't. You know what I'm saying? Just because it is the unconscious egoic drive, right? The serpent represents the ego. Serpent and the dragon, they're both symbolic of the same thing, right? And that is the pure, un uh, unrefined state of just pure conscious, like creation, and just it's not refined in the sense that it's like the bird, hence the red serpent's antipode, which is the blue eagle. It doesn't have the higher thinking mind, right? It's just pure life being birthed, right? So when you match that up with the magnetic tone, you get kin 105, and that is the purpose of this wave spell. So the whole purpose of this wave spell is about the life force energy, and really about initiating our bodies and understanding how that energy is flowing throughout us, right? You want to raise the kundalini, hence the rod with the entwining serpents and the wings on top, because you want to learn how to move that serpent through the chakras. So therefore you can, when you talk about the consciousness of the serpent, it's really just the consciousness of your body and how your body is feeling. Again, it is just a pure physical aspect to it, right? Not like the blue eagle, which has the higher capabilities of mind, right? A lot of people say you want to ascend that energy, right? To, get up to the top of the spine, raising the chrism, all of that. But that's just one aspect, right? Because as it goes up, right, it's going to naturally get pulled down. And when you find that it gets pulled down and gets stuck, you have to basically work with that energy in order to unblock those meridians and those chakras, etc., to allow it to continue to flow, because you want to continually to send your energy back to God. You want to symbolically ego die while you're alive, rather than basically squander the energy or to corrupt it, right? You want it to constantly be refined, which is what the whole death and resurrection process is all about, right? You want to transmute the energy, you want to purify it. Hence that whatever level your life force energy is at, it has to be transmuted and changed, and it has to go through that ego death, hence shedding the skin. And this is an ever perpetual process, right? This is the Ouroboros, this is Draco, etc., etc. But yeah, that's the purpose of this wave spell. So then you get into the following kin, which is actually really interesting, because within the loom of Maya, which is, I think I have this book here. No, I don't have it. But if you look at the Tzolk'in, right, there are these highlighted kin. There's 52 kin that are highlighted and colored green, and there's 26 on the left and 26 on the right. But in the very center, so of the columns of the Tzolk'in, there are 13 columns, and in the 6th and in the 8th, basically on either side of the 7th, there are 10 of these particular kin in a row. These kin are called gaps, aka galactic activation portals. Essentially, when they are points within the chapters of our life in the Tzolk'in where there's the most significant change, right? In fact, the 6th, the 7th, and the 8th column are the most transformative and key points within the Tzolk'in, right? So the first column begins on kin 106, and it continues on until kin 115. So that's 10 galactic activation portals in a row. This is what is known as the Alpha Run. All right, so the Alpha Run is essentially the where you start to basically change your actions, right? It's a creation process, right? The Alpha, right? And basically, that's whenever you start to see what changes are going to occur. And then from Kin's 146 to 155 is the Omega run, which is essentially the result of what had changed. But this is the active part, you know. The Omega run is the passive part, right? It's just a matter of going through the things that had changed, right? The reaction. Again, going back to prime numbers and their primal reactions, right? So, so getting into the lunar tone, though, the lunar tone, tone 2, right? It basically shows us the challenge of the Wavespell, which in this case it is the White World Bridger. The White World Bridger is very interesting because it is essentially that portal, right, or that opportunity, right, the opportunity, if you will, which essentially allows us to transcend from one world to the next, right? But at the same time, in order to cross that bridge, you have to give something up. You have to sacrifice. Hence why the Mayans always depicted this particular seal with the skull, because it was the skull, this is the place, right, that portal is can be cognized in that sense, right? So the White World Bridger is essentially the challenge of the Wavespell, meaning that you basically have to you really have to start shedding your skin, both in like a physical and like a psychological way, because within that great opportunities are in store, right? But at the same time, the challenge is the power of death, right? The unknown, stepping into, you know, the beyond in that sense. And the following kin, 107, is the electric tone, which is the service of the Wavespell, right? It is the activation, it is the act, right? So we have the magnetic, which is the purpose. We have the lunar, which is the challenge. We have the electric, which is the service that we're supposed to perform. And in this case, it is the blue hand. Now, I'll just say something brief about the particular kin, and then I'll mention something else regarding it, this particular number. So the blue hand is essentially taking matters into our hands, right? The action and the service that's going to occur is through our own will. Like, this is basically a point where God states that it is no longer, you know, you shouldn't so much let go and let God know. You have to grab the reins, and it's time for action in that sense, right? That's what kin 107 is telling us. And what's so prominent about this particular kin and number is that within the Tzolk'in, right? So from kins 1 to 260, or numbers 1 to 260, there are 55 prime numbers, because 257 is your 55th prime number. That is the last prime in the Tzolk'in. So 55, meaning that because it's an odd number, we have a centiger, and that centiger is 28. 28 is 55's centiger. And so therefore, the 28th prime is 107, okay? And again, you know, because this is tone 3 of the blue hand, right? 3 hand, right? We have these perfect equilateral triangles made up by taking our 28 phalanges and connecting them, and we get these triangles, 3, right? Hand, right? And again, this is prime 28, right? The word 3 sums 28, etc., etc. There's many things that go into that, but this is essentially, when you think of the prime numbers, you think of pure primal action, right? It is a total masculine thing, right? It is like pure self that is like essentially generating itself into creation, right? The God essence, God basically creating himself through his own will, and that extends itself through us, right? And that is that's the essence of primes in general. So the fact that this is the 28th prime in the very center of it, which is the activation of our hands, the electricity of our hands in that sense, that is the essence of 107. But again, the powers of the hand are knowledge, accomplishing things, and healing. So remember that. And then we get into the form of the action. So tone 4, self-existing, is the way in which we do it, the method, right? And that is the form. And the way that we do that is through the yellow star. So Kin 108. There's many other mathematical things that can go into the 108. Like this is the capstone of the golden gnomon. This is like embedded within 5. There's many things about this 108. A lot of things that I actually haven't studied as much as I should. But I'll just talk about the kin for right now, I guess. So the way in which we do things is through stars, right? So understanding the stars, understanding the mythology, understanding that our lives are like mythology. We are living mythology in the flesh in real time right now. And by understanding that, right, that's the form in which it's happening, right? Understanding that everybody is a star, and that the movements of humans and the coalescing and the orchestra of human activity is all based upon the stars, and the people move like the stars and things happen, right? So it's a very astrological way of going about this, right? So when you think of the red serpent energy and how to basically ascend the life force, right, and moving past mere survival, etc., and all that, or to, improve your survival and your instinct and life force, the way that we do that is through the study of the stars, right, or the form of the stars. And there's a lot of things that go in with like the 7 stars, aka the 7 keys, and the the 7 angels of the 7 churches and all of that, and goes into the chakras, and those align with the 7 visible heavenly bodies. They also align with the platonic solids, including what I call the Merkabahedron. The 7th, as far as I'm aware, being the sphere itself, but basically this gives us a key to understanding how to heal our bodies and ascend our life force, right? Because it is the form for the red serpent Wavespell. That's today, actually. Going into the 5th tone, we have Kin 109, and 109 is the red overtone moon. And so again, going into the overtone tone, the 5th tone, it is talking about the deeper nuance, understanding the different layers, the deeper meaning of the purpose of the wave spell, which is the red moon. And the red moon is essentially purification. It's energy that flows, right? It's not stagnant, right? It is universal water in that sense. And to me, it represents the soul of the earth, right? So that, to me, that's what the red moon represents. The red moon is also known as the cat, the jaguar, right? So it is that that the deeper purpose of the red serpent wave spell is to improve our flow with life, right? The way that we just flow through life, and everything clicks and makes sense and synchronizes. It's about purifying the soul. It's about purifying the body, right? Because it's through the process of purification that we heal and ascend into the higher levels and the higher realms of existence, and live the lives that were meant for us, going back to the previous kin. But yeah, that's 109. I want to mention, actually I'll mention that at the end. So Now we get into the rhythmic tone, right? I'll do this. Oh, wait. Sorry. Now we get into the rhythmic tone. I always have to remember to do that 0 there because there are 13 altogether. That means we have to use 2 digits when numbering them, even if they're a 1-digit number. So now we're getting into Kin 110, which is the rhythmic tone in this case. So the rhythmic tone is essentially the balancing process, the juggling, the back and forth in that sense, the things that we have to like organize and give equality to, right? To give fairness, to give judgment, and the things that we're going to have to constantly like take care of, the things that we have to clean up, the things that we have to like figure out, and in this case it is the white dog. And the white dog is all about heart and love and loyalty and this and that. So it's a really good kin for just cleaning up your life of toxic people, giving more love towards those who are loyal, and just forsaking the people who are not that good for you, right? And again, that organization and that cleaning up process makes way. The tone 6 makes way for tone 7. So this is the precursor right until that tone 7, right? So by doing of 109, which is the purification of the soul, etc., we move into having to organize our friendships, organize our associations with people, organize who we love, and if we're giving one person too much undeserved love or not giving another person enough love, etc., that's what that's making way for. That's what that is about, right? All right. Now we get to the resonant chamber, which is, in this case, for the red serpent wave spell, is a blue resonant monkey. So, like I've mentioned prior, the resonant tone is essentially the swivel point. It is the main heart of it. Yes, the purpose of the wave spell is the red serpent, but this is where it all coalesces and switches over. It's the passover point, if you will. It is the changeover, right? This is the resonance that's resonating at the heart of it, and that is the blue monkey, right? So it just goes to show that the monkey represents the human body, the human soul in its most mammalian form, if you will, right? The attributes of monkeys, the qualities of monkeys, right? What they mirror to us in that sense, right? That we are essentially, different looking monkeys with more intelligent minds, you know what I'm saying? And the monkey reminds us to be playful, right? To enjoy life, right? The reason why God gave us hands, right? And the reason why God gave us eyes, the reason why God gave us hands is to use them. The reason why God gave us eyes is to see. The reason why God gave us ears is to listen. And the monkey reminds us that, right? Because the monkey is basically has pretty much all the capabilities of a human, just without that extra layer of mind, which can either be absolutely, can be either good or evil, right? It basically shows us that step right before the yellow human, which we'll be following. But the powers of the monkey, as told to us by the Maya, was playfulness, okay, as well as illusion, right? Illusion. That one actually has always stuck out to me as a mystery, right? A mystery that I'm perfectly content with not completely understanding. But let's just say I've seen the monkey move the curtain, right? The monkey moves the curtain. And this isn't Jose Arguelles' exact kin, because he was blue spectral monkey. which is kin 11. But the resonant monkey is all about being in tune with that, right? Being in resonance and alignment with the monkey, basically mirroring the monkey or seeing the monkey within yourself, right? And it's also magic, right? So the three aspects of the monkey are magic, playfulness, and delusion, right? So just understand that the process of magic, right? The understanding of magic is right here in our hands. It's just unfortunate that we lost our feet hands, when we became humans, or that when the soul leveled up to that point. But yeah, that's and this rep digit number, this hyper 11, if you will, actually shares a really interesting quality with the number 37, but I'm not going to get into that right now. I'll talk about it some other time. So yeah, it has tone 7, and that's the resonant point. After this kin, or from the latter half of the kin onto the next one, the Wavespell switches over. And when it switches over, now we're in the passive half, right? The latter half of the Wavespell is always the passive half. So the galactic is essentially the back and forth again, right? But instead of it being an active thing that we have to use our active masculine willpower in order to carry things out. Now it's basically the response to that, but it also having that back and forth alternating energy, right? And that is the galactic tone. It's all about harmony, right? So we can see harmony, we can see integrity and modeling, right? Basically, we can see the result of things. And also, like I've mentioned before, the galactic tone for every wave spell, or the galactic tone kin of every wave spell, will be the magnetic tone of the wave spell prior. So since the last wave spell was the yellow human wave spell with kin 92, that means human will be the 8th tone of this wave spell. And since this is the serpent wave spell, the following serpent will be 8 serpent, or galactic serpent. And so that's why I call it the pop quiz tone, right? It shows us the alternating reaction to how we spent those last 13 days. So whatever we did, whatever changes occurred, right, basically reveals itself in the following seal, which will always be the 8th seal of whatever led the previous wave spell. And so the human is basically it's going to be showcasing human activity in that sense, right? And like I said, it has this really distinctive difference to the monkey, which is just showing the human form, right, and its capabilities, right, and its potential. It's like the monkey represents the human in a constant potential state, whereas the human has activated its potential to varying degrees, and it is going about the world and doing all kinds of things. So this is really a very clear indicator to what human beings are doing. You know what I'm saying? Like, okay, these people are over here causing drama. These people are over here, they're helping people. These people are over here breaking stuff. You know what I mean? It's a day for us to see that within the community and within each other. And to be aware of this helps you, right? To be aware of this helps you in that process. This is also 7 times 16, which is a very key pair of numbers, by the way. So keep going into that cube, warrior. Oh, one of these days I'll make that a little bit more clear. Going into tone 9. This is actually very important to me. Tone 9 for the Red Serpent wave spell is Red Solar Skywalker. Tone 9 is essentially uh, turning to the self more so, to understand what are you pulsating, what are you putting out, what is your intention, right? What are you getting back? What is other people pulsating like? What are we doing? All right, it's a time of realization, understanding the energy that you're pulsating out with your soul, right? Is the solar pulsation of the dielectromagnetic, right? The electricity, essentially, right? And it actually shares a really interesting relationship with tone 3. But tone 9 is the solar, which is the pure enlightenment, right? It is the awareness. And, you know, when you pair that up with the Skywalker, it's even more powerful, because the Skywalker is the prophet, right? The Skywalker walks upon the sky, and it can see all the things below, and start to understand patterns. Like I've said before, the dichotomy between the yellow human, seal 12, and the red Skywalker, seal 13, is the enlightened human, right? It is the human detached from the human existence and now sees things from a higher state, hence the Skywalker. And, you know, it's like real interesting that they made Luke Skywalker's lightsaber blue and this and that and whatever, but it's the red Skywalker's red. It's a red energy, right? Because it is the avatar, right? It is the God self, or the mythological self, right? The like basically every human being is based upon divine archetypes, right? And those have been mythologized throughout. Like every type of human being has been mythologized at some point, someplace. And the red Skywalker is a time to understand your manifest higher self, and you realize that as the avatar here on Earth, right? And so it's really a time to like reawaken to who you are and who other people are, and also to pulsate prophecy, so you can, you know, and you'll explore, you'll find the bounds of space, right? You'll be able to transcend that space, etc., and it will wake you up in that sense, right? So this is prime number 30, by the way. So, you know, Jesus Christ began his ministry at age 30, and Jesus Christ is the ultimate avatar, right? He's the avatar of God. And this is like encoded within some various aspects of the Holy Bible. I don't have time to get into it right now, but that's essentially tone 9, right, for the Red Serpent Wavespell. Now, this is I didn't talk about the other relationships between your primal creation and primal reactions for the prime numbers, but I'll talk about it for this one. You can reflect upon the other ones later on. But essentially, all prime numbers, divisors are 1 in itself, therefore its divisor sum is the following number, right? For every prime number, in this case 113 and 1, its only divisor, add up to this. So this is the primal reaction. So the primal creation was red solar Skywalker, kin 113, kin 114 is white planetary wizard, right? And this also, this number, you know, 113, 114 have been embedded in the Holy Bible in various ways, and I've unlocked certain awarenesses of that. But this is the 10, tone 10, which is the planetary. It is the manifestation, it is the action, right? So that all the first 9 basically culminate up to this point, which, again, so this is what we have to do. This is when action occurs, right? And that it occurs for the collective as well as for the individual. But just focus on yourself, okay? And do your best. The white wizard is basically the power of 7 doubled, right? Which is, you know, 7 is the hand, right? 14, right? 14, it is the power of the hands, right? That's why the white wizard has the hand as its occult power, right? But yeah, 14 or 114 is white planetary wizard, which is the action of the wizard. And like I've mentioned before, the power of the wizard is in the enchantment, receptivity, and timelessness, right? So it is basically the human avatar at work, right? So you go to the Red Skywalker, which is the enlightened human who has now the awareness of the higher levels of intelligence, who can see those things firsthand. But the White Wizard is Gandalf, right? Gandalf the White. Pippin calls him the White Wizard in the third movie, but I'm not sure if he calls him that in the book. I'm sure he's called, like, I've read the books before, but and I continue to read them, but I can't recall an exact point where they say that he's the White Wizard. But Gandalf is essentially the White Wizard. He's the White Wizard represents the reborn wizard in that sense, right? It is basically Jesus Christ and his full power, right? Which is the or not full power, but it is the power of Jesus Christ's eternal spirit, right? It is the constantly renewing, ever-present, deathless being, right? And the power of the wizard is in their hands. So you have to you basically, I've also called the White Wizard the solvent, right? Or the puzzler, right? He solves puzzles. He, she, whatever. They are the mechanic. They are the fixer-upper, the handyman, if you will. They solve problems. They're the problem solver. And this is the challenge of that. This is the tone 2 is the challenge. This is the action. This is when it manifests, and we gotta take on the power of the White Wizard. So that's Kin 114. Now this Kin I'm about to talk about 115. This is the end of that alpha run. So the 10 gap days in a row goes from 106 to 115. So this is the conclusion of that. And Tone 11, like I've said before, is the release. It is like the main energetic charge of the Wavespell has now been completed. 1 to 10. And now 11 is the release of that. It's the liberation of that, the dissolving of that. So we can understand the spectralized system of whatever seal it's paired up with. And in this case, it's the Blue Eagle. The Blue Eagle has the power of the eyes, the mind, creation, right? And vision, So on this Kin, we essentially, we really soar high, right? It's sort of like a time to really look at things and see things for how they are, right? There's a lot of soul flight, right? Within your dreams, your soul is going to go far. It's going to fly, and it's going to see things it normally doesn't see. The fact that the eagle follows the White Wizard is what J.R.R. Tolkien was absolutely aware of the Mayan Tzolk'in. Absolutely. Never heard him admit it in any interview or anything, but I fucking know he does, or he did, because he is Kin 100 and no, he's Kin 255, if I'm not mistaken. So he is a Blue Eagle. J.R.R. Tolkien is Blue Galactic Eagle. And what's interesting about that is he's always placed himself he placed himself in Bilbo's shoes. All the characters, but specifically his own inner, like, childlike soul. He placed himself in Bilbo, right, as well as Frodo and Sam, but you know what I'm saying. He's the 15th of Thorin Oakenshield's company. So you have Thorin and his 12 dwarfs making 13 dwarfs. This is the same motif that goes with Jesus and his 12 disciples. I think Muhammad had 12 prophets. The center of the clock with the 12 around it. The seventh tone with the other 12 tones around it. The Last Supper. That's exactly what that is. It's the same thing with the septenary gematria cipher. Um, so you had the 13 dwarves, which is interesting because there's also Snow White and the 7 dwarves. So you had 7 dwarves in Snow White, 13 in The Hobbit. So 7 and 13, again, both of them being references to this. Okay. I've gone into why I like The Wizard of Oz is all about Tzolk'in, right? The people that are creating these modern mythologies are embedding this in there. Peter Pan, Alice in Wonderland, Aladdin, etc., etc. It's all the same. They're all aware of these things, right? That's how they are able to make what they make. Walt Disney, he was absolutely aware of these things. Harry Potter, it's the same. Yeah. So the 13 dwarves, right, for Thorin and company, as they call it. Then you had Gandalf, which is the 14th, again, because he's the white wizard, right? Well, not yet. He's Gandalf the Grey, but he's ultimately going to become the white wizard. So I assume that Ronald Rule Tolkien, or Rule Ronald, I don't know, had pre-planned that from the beginning, and he based it off of the 14th seal, because then Bilbo would make 15, and he is seal 15 right here. He is a blue eagle, and so that would make Bilbo the 15th. That would make him himself, right? And who always saved Gandalf and friends? Well, it was the eagles, right? Gandalf being trapped on top of Orthanc, right? Saruman is torturing him, this and that, and he's, I don't think it was book canon, but in the movie he speaks to the moth and then it flies away, and then it calls Gwaihir and the eagles, and they come and save his ass. Yeah, all of this is embedded within that. So, and the eagle is also the writer, right? At least as far as I can tell. Of the 20 solar seals, the blue eagle is definitely the writer, which is interesting as well, because George R.R. Martin, the writer of A Song of Ice and Fire, aka the Game of Thrones books, he's also a blue eagle. In fact, like I said, about 106 to 115 being the alpha run, 146 to 155 is the omega run. George R.R. Martin is kin 155. So he's 2 eagles later. All right, so J.R.R. Tolkien is kin 255, and George R.R. Martin is kin 155. 155. So you have the author of The Lord of the Rings, J.R.R. Tolkien, being 255, blue galactic eagle, and George R.R. Martin being kin 155, blue crystal eagle. Okay? Keep that in mind. And you remember what I've said about the... Do I have... No, I don't have the cipher with me, but on the septenary gematria cipher, right? The letter R is 5. So, yeah. So if you look at their names, RR, that double R, right? Which I think both of them legitimately have, right? I don't know, it could be pen names, but either way, they put the RR, right, in their names. That's 5-5. Just like how one is 255, one is 155. Both of them being prolific writers of modern fantasy mythology. And if you've not really delved into the mythology contained within both of those series of books, then you're honestly overlooking them, because they are very well meticulously thought out, and they're embedded with tons of, cross-cultural mythology, etc. Even going into the mystical, right? But yeah, I just thought that was interesting. You know what I mean? But yeah, so that the blue eagle is, again, creation. It's mind, it's awareness, it's higher intelligence, right? It is the ability to see beyond, right? That's the power of the blue eagle, which I actually saw a blue cardinal today. But like I've also said before, okay, yeah, so that's the blue eagle, right? And I'll come back to that in a second. But tone 11, right? We're going to talk about tone 11 now, is the spectral tone, right? Which is not only it not only shows us the spectrum of the power of whatever seal it's paired up with, it shows us the holographic nature of it, right? The metaphysical light form of whatever seal it's paired up with. So it shows us the system of it, right? The spectrum. But it is also always antipodal to the beginning kin that begins the wave spell. So in this case, it's the red serpent. Red serpent's antipode is the blue eagle, and so the spectral tone is blue spectral eagle. So it is also when you think of the purpose of the wave spell. So for instance, as red serpent, it's all red serpent energy the whole way through. So this is the blue eagle abiding by the way of the red serpent. It is abiding to the rules set forth by the red serpent, and it has its ego death, hence liberation and dissolving the power of the spectral, and it shines through, right? We see the inner soul of the blue eagle, right? Because the blue eagle has abided by the commands set forth by the magnetic tone, and now we see the inherent purpose of it. So it's like it's all about the red serpent life force energy, right? But now the eagle is showing us why we have to transcend just pure survival, right? We have to transcend because the mind shows us that there's more to this world, right? The inner eye, right, shows us that there's more beyond just physical living, right? So that's the power of tone 11. And what else was I gonna? Oh yeah, already. Yeah, never mind. But yeah, the serpent and the eagle antipodal relationship is seen in the occult time and time again. With the eagle holding the snake in its talons, etc. The eagle ruling higher Egypt, the serpent ruling lower Egypt. You have the combination of the two, which is the unification, and the one, which is the red the dragon. You also have the serpents around the rod, which have the wings on top, showing us that the bird and the reptile are essentially opposites, and they're very similar to each other in that they share a lot of attributes, right? So one has scales, one has feathers, but they both have like claws, right? This one has talons, and the other one has the leathery type claws. They both have very similar eyes, right? Very intense, intelligent, but also fierce, potentially dangerous eyes, But yeah, so that's the kind of connection between the blue eagle and the red serpent. I went on that one for a long time, but I actually figured out something really interesting with this number in my kin. So I guess that makes sense. I'm not going to talk about it, but so that concludes the alpha run, the 10 gap day sequence. So now we get into tone 12, and in this instance, it's the yellow warrior. So yellow crystal warrior is basically, as I've mentioned before, the crystal tone is whenever the entire system starts working as a unit, right? It all works as one universal field, right? This is the Christ, okay? This is the Christ. When human beings and the field starts operating in synchronicity, like basically human beings start operating like a school of fish, one huge system, like I've said before, everything and everyone together is God, right? And God also transcends that. But when we get to a crystal tone day, it's showing us how the entire group or the collective or a giant organism that is the world with the people in it is all operating as one operating system, right? And that's what the crystal tone shows us, right? So in this instance, it is the yellow warrior. And the yellow warrior is essentially the completed human archetype. So you have 20 solar seals. From seals 1 to 16 is all the human archetypes. So technically the conclusion of the human archetype is the warrior, right? This is the 16, the Myers-Briggs personality archetypes, etc. The last 4 seals, the red earth, white mirror, blue storm, and yellow sun, are matrix archetypes. So those are the pure, essence of the matrix, which is the red earth. Then you have the white mirror, which is Luna. Then you have the blue storm, which is the waters above the sky, right? Heaven. and then you have the yellow sun. So those are the four matrix powers, which is the earth, Luna, the sky, and the sun. All right. So the yellow warrior is the completed human archetype. Right. This is going from seals 1 to 16 actually is what creates the cube journey sequences. Right. Which one of these days I'll get into that as well. So the power of the warrior is essentially intelligence, right? The warrior informs. The warrior shows us the golden path, right? Hence, the glyph of the warrior was always a box with the question mark on it, right? The warrior's going into the cube, right? It is the golden path. The warrior's traveling through the sun, and along the way, the warrior is guiding us all to understand intelligence, right? Not so much wisdom, but intelligence, right? It's showing the yellow warriors are showing us pure data, pure intelligence, right? Pure information. And the warrior has to fight for that. The warrior has to question things. The warrior has to dare. And the warrior also has to be courageous and fearless and this and that. And so when we pair that up with the 12th tone, it's basically showing us how the collective is doing that. And, how one warrior connects to another warrior, and that warrior connects to another warrior, and the golden path is literally being seen in the collective, right? So that's Ken 116. And so, look to that day just to understand like the energy that's going to happen after the alpha run, right? And then we conclude the Wavespell with Ken 117, which is Red Cosmic Earth. Red Cosmic Earth. So the red Earth, or the cosmic tone, is essentially the final chapter of a Wavespell. It is essentially transmuting, it's completing the cycle, right? Simultaneously transferring it over to begin the next Wavespell, right? So the red Serpent Wavespell comes to a close on this kin, and it's also making way for the following Wavespell, which is the White Mirror Wavespell. The power of the red Earth, right? That's tone 13. It's basically ending the Wavespell and preparing the next one, and also converting the energy for the next one. It's transforming it to be, right? So it is the bridge from the end of one Wavespell to the other. It's all about presence. So on these days, just be yourself, live life, endurance, okay? And transcendence. That's the powers of it. Presence, endurance, transcendence. Pairing it up with the red Earth is all about evolution. It's synchronicity, it's navigation, right? Things move along, right? The power of the red Earth is the matrix herself, right? So we're talking about, the ground floor of the matrix, this big flat space that we're all walking around in. That's the red Earth, right? And through the navigation of this plane, right, we are evolving, right? Because we come down here as the avatar in order to uplift our soul even higher, right, to return, but also to help lift others up as well. And so it requires you have to move around on the chessboard a lot. And through that is evolution, right? Because it is within the red Earth is the soul of the red moon, which is the spirit, right? Or not the spirit, but like the consciousness of the Earth, right? So we have to be aware that within this matrix, it is alive, it is conscious, it is communicating to us in various ways, because lots of things live down here on this plane, lots of people, right? So lots of things exist down here, right? And we have to be in communion with that. This is the whole essence of geomancy, right? So it is basically to transcend the earth, right? It is all about transforming the earth, because through the red serpent of our own life force, our own bodies, we are coalescing with the field, right? So the serpent to the field, that's what it's showing us, right? That we are, that our direct actions is affecting this field around us. We've seen that throughout the entirety of human history. What we do affects the field, so we need to transform the field, right? But it's okay, because the following kin will be kin 118, which is white magnetic mirror. So you'll basically see a response of like, okay, this is now what the field is trying to show you. This is what it's reflecting you, or within you. This is what you have to, deal with, right? So that's essentially the red serpent wave spell. But I will say one more thing before I go. But I guess before we do, let's go ahead and do a quick G breath. So let's just do the same command. Power up. Exhale the air out of your mouth. All the way. Mouth. Mouth, nose. Nose. Nose, mouth. Mouth. The last thing I want to talk about is the I guess I call them pentagram pulsars, because as far as I'm aware, I'm the only one that knows about these things. They probably are somewhere in the Mayan codexes. I don't have them, so and I don't know where to find them. I've never really looked for them, but I've heard that they're like cryptic and like translations or whatever. But either way, there's various different pulsars, which is basically the links between one kin and the next within a wave spell, right? So you have your wave spell. Can you see that? Oh, okay, a little bit. Most of my knowledge of this comes directly from Jose Arguelles. So if people have a problem with that, then they can go somewhere else. Because I think the dude was a prophet, and he should not be slept on. May he rest in peace. Even though he was a little bit eccentric and compromised in certain ways. I'm not going to deny that. But, so you have your wave spell, right? This is like basically how the Maya depicted them. You have tone 1, you have tone 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, and 13. So, for instance, the regular pulsars basically link the colors of each of the kin, right? So, for instance, you have a red here, right? You have serpent up here. You have moon down here, or red serpent, red moon, red skywalker, red earth, right? So that would be the fourth dimensional, because there are 4 of them, right? Whereas the other 3 pulsars that link the whites, the blues, and the yellows are the sense, the life, and the mind, right? Or sorry, life, sense, and mind. And the other one is the time, right? So then you also have the overtone. So those jump in sequences of 4, right? So for instance, from tone 1 to 5 to 9 to 13, they're jumping in sets of 4, right? Or for instance, of the whites, you have 2, 6, and 10, right? So it's jumping in sets of 4. The overtone pulsars jump in sets of 5. So those match up the 1 digit's place of the galactic notation. So for instance, tone 1 has 1 dot in the 1 position. Tone 6 has 1 dot in the 1 digit position. And tone 11, so 1, 6, and 11. This is where you get your overtone pulsars, which is essentially showing antipodal relationships and the bridge between them. And that all goes back to the Earth families. For instance, you remember, like I said, with tone 1 and 11, they're antipodal. Well, we have another kin within their Earth family that's acting as mediator. It's acting as a bridge between the two, right? And that would, so for instance, tone 1 and 11, that's the red serpent and the blue eagle. You have tone 6 white dog. And, like I talked about a little bit in the past, the red serpent, the white dog, the blue eagle, and the yellow sun are all part of the same Earth family because they all have the polar Earth family, because they have the bar in their 1 digit position, right? Essentially 5, 10, 15, and 20, right? So it's showing us the antipodal relationship between the two. And what is the bridge? Well, it's the white dog. So if you're having trouble with that antipodal relationship, because of whatever your position is on the Tzolk'in, etc., that white dog is the key. So that's the purpose of the overtone pulsars, right? It's showing us these antipodal relationships. The only two different ones being tones 4, 5, 9, and 10, which act of their own. They're different, right? But the one that I want to talk about here, I guess for right now, and that'll be the conclusion of this, is what I call the pentagram pulsars. Which for every, and I guess I'll mention the other aspect to the pentagram pulsars on another Wavespell video. But essentially, a pentagram pulsar is the pentegers of every Wavespell, right? So you remember how I was talking about, like, okay, can you see it? Okay. So if we write out the digits from 1 to 13, right? So I guess we can go ahead and just do that. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We'll go ahead and box that. 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. Okay, so we have the first 13 integers, right? So this is a closed system, right? This is actually going back to the vibrational fields. But so we have tone 7 here in the center. So the pentegers of a pentager matrix, right? Not every number has a pentager matrix, but 13 does. Okay, so we have the center digit, and we have the first digit and the last digit. This is what is called trintegers, or at least what I call them, trintegers. This shows the trinity within this Wavespell, which is tone 1, 7, and 13, right? Now, it also has a pentager system, which would be 4 and 10, right? So 1 and 13 are equal apart, 4 and 10 are equal apart, and you have the 7 in the center. So, and you have the same number of digits between each pentager, right? So you have 2 and 3 here, 5 and 6 here, 8 and 9, and then 11 and 12. And that goes into what I call the solar prophetic and galactic karmic, or that's what Jose would have called it. It's basically solar and solar prophetic and lunar karmic. That's what I would call it. Solar prophetic and lunar karmic, right? But anyways, we'll just talk about this for now, and then we'll talk about the solar prophetic and lunar karmic pulsars later on. So if we were to connect those and make a pulsar link, which that's essentially what the pulsar is a link between the kin, right? So we connect 1 down to 4. Oh, my bad. Yeah. Down to 4, and then we connect it to 7, then connect it to 10, and then 13, and then connect that back to 1. So now we connect every other angle to the other ones. Now we have a pentagram, as sloppy as that is, right? My bad. Yeah, as sloppy as that is, that's the pentagram pulsar. So it goes with the chromatic sequence, right? So you have your input or your receive, right? So this would be receive. 4 would be refine or the store. 7 would be the process or the resonance. 10 is the output or the reaction, and then 13 is the matrix or the reverberation, right? So as with every chromatic sequence, anytime you see the chromatic sequence within the law of time, it's talking about the same process of 5, right? It's you receive, then you refine, you resonate, then you release, and then it reverberates, and then you receive it again. So that is it's the pulse flux, right? The pulse flux, which you could also look at as 1, 7, and 13. It's input, change, output, input, change, output. It's the same, dielectric discharges, boom, it expands, right? And then it expands outward, it resonates, and then it comes, and then it dies, and then it goes back in, and so on and so forth, right? So that I just changed the whatchamacallit, the names just to simplify it. So you have receive, refine, resonate, release, reverb, right? Or reverberate, right? So yeah, so in this case, right, we have the serpent as the receiving end, right? So we're receiving like a download to understand, or receiving a download to understand our life force energy, right? It's like downloading the serpent energy in order to understand that within us, right? And again, the red serpent, it goes into a lot of like very sexual stuff, so just remember that. But that it's also masculine, right? So just remember that the red serpent is the seal that follows the 4th seal, which is the yellow seed. The tone 4 is the it's sort of the installation of the download, right? So you download, you install, you what is it? It's basically like it's changing you, right? It's coding, and then you have where you run the software, and then you upload back to the matrix, back to God, which then gives you the next download. So it's like download, install, resonate. I'm not entirely sure, like a computer term for that, but run the software, or activate the software, turn it on, use it, and then upload. So in this case of the installation, the the download, it basically makes us aware of the stars, so you have the download of the life force, you have the software installation of the stars, then you have the resonance of the monkey, right? And then you have the activation of the wizard, and then the transcendence or the upload of the earth. So in these pentager systems for this red serpent Wavespell, we have red serpent, yellow star, blue monkey, white wizard, and red earth. And these 5 share what I call the pentager or the pentagram pulsar, which has that chromatic sequence, right? You could think of this as like the respiratory sequence, right? So for instance, you breathe in, you hold it in, it extracts the oxygen and the other gases from it, which then your body absorbs. It converts other gases in the body to be expelled, so then you exhale and then you hold it out, right? But this hold out as well is also the processing of the trees and the other foliage of their own conversion process, or their own like receiving, right? So you know, the G breath is the same way, you know, mouth, 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 nose, 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 mouth, 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 right? And remember that the first mouth, mouth, and the second mouth, mouth are essentially the same, right? So there's this interesting connection with this 1 and this 13 here, which goes back to Kabbalah, you know, because there's only 12 Sephiroth, but you start on one and you come back to it, right? Which in that case, it'd be like, not Kether, but the one that would technically be above Kether were it present, but, you know, 2 fruit are removed from the tree. But yeah, that's, you know, and that, I guess that's very fitting to end on, because with the serpent and the tree and everything like that. So yeah, that's pretty much it. So yeah, you'll have a good one. Sorry that it went so long, but if you watched it all the way, then cool. I hope that all of this is leading somewhere.